Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I am grateful to you for granting time for this debate on government community funding and support for local pubs. We are fortunate to have so many amazing pubs in Reigate, Redhill, Banstead and our villages, and they are far more than just a place to have a pint. They are the heart and soul of our towns and villages, bringing people together and enriching daily life. They provide jobs, a sense of community, and they even support our local farmers and producers by selling their goods. But sadly, we have lost many pubs in recent years, with ever-increasing costs and rising taxes pushing them to closure. And every loss is felt in the community, diminishing social cohesion and shrinking our local economy. Pubs contributed more than £34.4 billion to the UK economy in 2024 and paid more than £17.4 billion in tax despite the tight margins they operate on. And just as many households have struggled with high energy bills and inflation, so too have pubs. They are still feeling the residual effects of lockdowns during the pandemic and the change in consumer behaviour that came with it. And now they face increased employer national insurance and business rates too, on top of everything else. I will, of course, give way.
Jim Shannon.
Can I first of all commend the Honourable Lady for Reigate? She's very quickly, Madam Deputy Speaker, making a reputation for herself in this House as an assiduous MP, whether it be in Westminster Hall, whether it be in adjournment debates, or whether it be like last Friday. Well done to her. I think every one of her constituents should be proud of all of her industrious work here. Strangford and Ards also has suffered greatly from the hospitality business downturn. I think of just as one example, Madam Deputy, the Parlour Bar, built in 1735. It's been there a long time, but it's under pressure, like other pubs in Newton Ards as well, Romans and others. Does the Honourable Lady agree, for instance, that 65% of hospitality business plans to reduce employment levels, risking job losses, impacting worker income? 55% intend to cancel planned investments, and 26% will cut trading hours due to an increase in minimum wages and national insurance contributions. So does the Honourable Lady agree with me? I think everyone here has the same opinion. We look to the Minister for a good reply, that if the government needs to step up, and the Minister as well, with the sympathy and the compassion he has for business, to ensure that they survive beyond 2025 and maybe for another 300 years.
I thank the Honourable Member for that contribution, and I do agree. I think it's really important that we support our pubs. We cannot continue this approach of squeezing them till the pits squeak. We will lose them, and once we do, we will never get them back. I will, of course, give way.
Thank you. On the point of business rates, obviously business rates from next year, the government will be permanently lowering business rates for retail hospitality businesses. Will the Honourable Member agree with me that it would be good if the Minister could confirm that that permanent lowering would be in relation to rates as they currently are rather than pre-COVID rates or rates as they were last year?
Rebecca Paul.
I thank the Honourable Lady for that intervention, and I would welcome any clarity from the Minister around that, so thank you for that contribution. In Redhill, we have an amazing pub called the Garibaldi. It is a community pub, a not-for-profit pub that gives back to the community in so many ways. On walking in, you feel the warmth straight away from Shiv and Juliet and the other volunteers, who are always there to welcome you with a smile. And there is always something going on: quizzes, karaoke, bunny street food, and even a book club. My personal favourites, though, are the Forces Fry-Up for veterans on a Saturday morning. Sometimes I come along to help serve the tea, coffee and toast. I normally do it quite badly. And, of course, music bingo. And out back, there's the community garden, which they've transformed with the help of the Garibaldi Gardening Group volunteers, which is now accessible to everyone, including young adults with special needs that visit with the YMCA East Surrey. Every bit of profit they make gets ploughed back into things that benefit the community. They are there for the benefit of Redhill residents, not for any other reason. And they are extremely good at what they do. That is incredibly clear whenever I visit. People from all walks of life sitting side by side with friends and neighbours, enjoying a chat and a drink, all part of making the Garibaldi the special place that it is. I will, of course, give way.
Chris MacDonald.
Thank you very much. Sorry to interrupt the floor slightly there. Garibaldi sounds like an amazing pub, but when you describe about how it reinvests the funds, it reminds me of the clubs in my constituency. Clubs rather than pubs are perhaps more popular in the North East. And would she agree with me that many of the things that she said about the community importance of pubs also applies to clubs, such as the Hardwick Social Club in my constituency?
Rebecca Paul.
I thank the honourable gentleman for that intervention. Absolutely, it applies to clubs and it applies to any premises where we might listen to live music. There are so many things that this applies to. This evening I will be focusing on pubs, but I hope we will have many other debates on all of these other things. The Garibaldi has stood on Mill Street for 150 years. It has survived 2 world wars, multiple recessions and 2 global pandemics. It's seen Red Hill transform around it into the modern, bustling town it is today. But it is now at risk if the funds can't be raised to buy the building. Rather ironically, this pub is so much more than the bricks and mortar, but it needs to buy the bricks and mortar if it is to survive. The Community Ownership Fund in previous years has provided a great opportunity for community groups to acquire community buildings. It has awarded over £135 million to 409 projects across the UK, including several community pubs. However, sadly, this fund is no longer available. The new government has announced its intention to ensure there is a new right to buy for important community assets. This will no doubt bring many benefits and help preserve valued community buildings and spaces. It will empower communities to save much-loved pubs and community halls rather than just having to accept their loss. However, in order for groups to utilise this to the full, I would ask the Minister if they have any plans to introduce a fund to help support the purchase of valuable community assets by the community. The Garibaldi is doing a sterling job, Madam Deputy Speaker, of trying to raise the money itself, as I'm sure many other groups around the country are doing, but it would be useful to know if there is any likelihood of new funding they could apply for on the horizon to supplement their efforts. The Garibaldi is such an important part of Red Hill, and we can't imagine Red Hill without it, so I'd be most grateful for any advice and support from the Minister on how we can secure it for future generations. I will, of course, give way.
I'm very grateful to her, and I think she's absolutely right that some sort of community ownership fund is required in this space. Would she agree with me that another thing that's required is for companies that own the pub that the community is seeking to buy from need to look after the property? We've got in Chardstock, the Georgian Continuity Group is trying to buy the pub, but Wellington Pub Company is allowing water in through the roof, and it's completely unacceptable. Would you agree that pub companies that own the pubs need to look after them?
Rebecca Paul.
I thank the honourable gentleman for that intervention, and obviously I don't know the details of that specific case, but I would agree that we all have a collective responsibility to look after these important community assets. Before I bring my comments to a close, I would like to pay tribute to some other fantastic pubs in my constituency. I have quite a lot of them. I will, of course, give way.
Come.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Honourable Member is talking about the resumption of the Community Ownership Fund for pubs. Would the Minister consider maybe other options, like the British Business Bank, and how other funds could be used for this purpose?
Rebecca Paul.
I thank the Honourable Lady for that intervention, and I too would be very interested in the Minister's response to that question. I recently ran a campaign to find out which pubs were my constituents' favourites, with the aim of reminding them of the amazing pubs on their doorstep and the importance of supporting their local. The response has been phenomenal. It's very clear that our pubs mean a lot to local people in Reigate, Red Hill, Banstead and our villages. And I'm pleased to say that the results are now in. I'm sure the Minister is on the edge of his seat wanting to know, and before I put him out of his misery, I want to let him know he is very welcome. Indeed, anyone in here this evening is welcome to visit for a pint. The winner of Best Food and Drink Pub and Best Pub Garden is the Well House Inn, which is a pub I know very well in Mugswell. I can personally vouch for the delicious burgers. I have a tendency to make sure I visit around lunchtime. I will, of course, give way.
We're into just.
I'm grateful for the Honourable Member giving way. The Honourable Member has given an account of all the different pubs in her constituency, but the kind of stories that you've mentioned are across the country. In my constituency of Wolverhampton West, we have the Royal Oak pub in Chapel Ash, which does great charitable work. It has the Midland Freewheelers blood bikes, and what they do is they provide a courier service to deliver blood for the NHS, and done through all volunteers, and they are now having a charity event next month where motorcyclists, cyclists, runners, walkers will support the city. They will celebrate the parks, the streets and the people of Wolverhampton. So does the Honourable Member agree that our pubs are not just places where you eat and drink, where you have a good time, but they do also a lot of great charitable work, which we need so much, and even in terms of supporting the NHS.
Paul.
I thank the honourable gentleman for that intervention. I think it's indeed impressive what the pub in his constituency is doing, and I do completely agree that pubs are so much more than just places where you buy food and drink, and I think any of us that have those pubs in our constituency are very fortunate. I'm going back to the Wellhouse Inn, and the beer garden in the Wellhouse Inn is indeed amazing and is home to the St Margaret's Well, which is reputedly mentioned in the Doomsday Book. If you're lucky, you may even catch sight of their resident ghost, Harry the Monk, when you're enjoying a quiet pint of ale. The winner of Best Family Pub is the Sportsman in Mogador, which is another excellent pub that is very local to me. It was originally a hunting lodge for Henry VIII and is surrounded by the most beautiful heathland. Local residents very much enjoy a hike across the countryside to it with their dogs before enjoying a pint. And they are also brilliant at supporting local businesses with the Christmas market that they do every year. And lastly, and rather appropriately, given the subject matter of this debate, I will of course give way.
I'm
very grateful, Madam Speaker, to the Honourable Lady for giving way just before she concludes her remarks, and she's making an excellent speech as she did on Friday, and I want to acknowledge that in the House this evening. As she talks about the wonderful pubs in her constituency of Reigate, can I just touch gently, Madam Speaker, and briefly on the Albert, the Westbury Tavern, the Swan, the Burton Horses, the Bush Inn, the Sneyd Arms and Newcastle under Lyme, excellent public houses of which all colleagues will be most welcome to come and see us. We're here tonight and she has an excellent German debate, and I congratulate her for securing it, on celebrating our pubs in Reigate and Newcastle Lyme and up and down the country, including Strangford. But can I say to the Honourable Lady that today I launched the 2025 Best Pub in Newcastle under Lyme Awards competition, Madam Deputy Speaker. And so I wonder if the Honourable Lady will join me encouraging all my constituents to take part in that competition, to not only vote in the competition, but to celebrate the wonderful pubs in Newcastle under Lyme.
Paul.
I thank the honourable gentleman for that intervention. And actually, he's made me feel slightly less guilty from reeling off all of the pubs in my constituency, because now I'm not alone in advertising the amazing pubs in that. I absolutely would encourage his constituents to vote in that campaign and let you know what they love about their pubs. But I'm now going back to the winners. I know you're all really wanting to know. So lastly, and rather appropriately given the subject matter of this debate, and I promise this is not a stitch-up, this is actually what the numbers have said, I'm pleased to say that the Garibaldi has won Best Overall Pub and Best Community Pub. I'm sure after this debate you already understand why it is so special and why so many residents have voted for it. So I won't wax lyrical any further, but I do hope the Minister will support me, the volunteers and local residents in trying to save this gem for future generations. And again, I reiterate my invitation to him to pay a visit with me when he gets a break in his busy schedule. I would love to take him on a pub crawl. Yeah. Thank you.
Perhaps the best invitation he'll get all week.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I'd like to start by thanking the Honourable Member for Reigate for securing this important debate and that very kind invite, which I'll return to. And I'll confess, Madam Deputy Speaker, at about 17 minutes past 10, normally when thinking about difficult questions regarding pubs, it's whether you can squeeze one more or two more in. I think normally the latter, but today colleagues have asked some other very important questions, indeed more important questions, that I look forward to addressing. And it felt a little bit like a tour of Reigate, which I really enjoyed. And there's clearly some excellent pubs there. So, of course, I'll be very, very much looking forward to visiting. Now, as the Honourable Lady says, we know there's a long-term trend of communities losing important local assets that foster that sense of community cohesion. And this has a knock-on impact on people's satisfaction with the place they live in and the strength of local communities. I think actually that's likely to be one of the defining features, Madam Deputy Speaker, of this Parliament, is how well, as a government, as a Parliament, we are able to address that and to give communities agency over place and to address that sense of decline that feeds that sense of anger and loss. So we recognise that the opportunity for communities to take over such assets and operate them successfully for community use is a very good one indeed. And it now allows people to continue to benefit from the places that matter most to them and empower communities to shape their areas. And of course, what could be a better example of such community facilities than pubs, which, as the Honourable Lady says, are at the heart of our communities and do serve as crucial community assets. They support the local economy, they provide spaces for community gatherings, and the best pubs offer essential services alongside it, we've heard from a number of colleagues, such as support for vulnerable individuals, and they foster a sense of community pride and help us tackle loneliness and social isolation. And it was clear from the honourable member's contribution how passionate she is about supporting local pubs and the industry more generally. But I have to say, as we admirably heard from my honourable friend as well, that the Best Pubs competition is a great way of recognising the importance of these assets. In Surrey, in her case, and in Newcastle under Lyme, in my honourable friend's case. And I know that clearly her constituents have valued it too, and perhaps, judging from what she said, not a surprise that the Garibaldi was successful. I congratulate them. I will give way.
I'm very grateful to the Minister for giving way, Madam Speaker. Can I just say to the Minister that as and when the people of Newcastle Lyme, the good people of Newcastle Lyme, confirm the best pub of 2025, will he come and have a pint? Because I'll buy the first round.
Minister.
I wouldn't want the inducement to be seen as my reason for saying yes, though it is an attractive part. Of course, I will happily come. And I will say to the Honourable Gentleman from Strangford, I owe him a trip to Newtonards for the day that, as part of the Retail NI High Street Awards, I gave the winners to Ballymena rather than Newtonards, and have felt that sense of loss ever since. So I will also come and join him. I'll give away one more time to the honourable gentleman.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very grateful to the Minister for his indulgence. Can I just say, it wouldn't be a free pint because I've got a long list of things for him to help me get sorted for the people of Newcastle and Lyme.
I have absolutely no doubt, and I have no doubt he'll take that on with vigour. The honourable... I have absolutely no doubt, and I have no doubt he'll take that on with vigour. The honourable member talks about the Community Ownership Fund, and again, I want to recognise the important work that has done, spanning our time in government and before. And as she says, since 2021, awarding over £135 million to 409 projects across the UK. And of that, the fund supported 52 local pubs with £13.7 million in funding. And these pubs will bring significant benefits to their local communities. And those numbers are obviously in the aggregate, but for each one of those, that is a community asset retained, adding huge value and bringing much joy. And to point to a couple that we awarded to in the December round at the end of last year, £300,000 for the Rectory in Chesterfield. That funding secures the future of that vital community pub and social hub, but it's also going to be used to create a wellness space and to provide a home for the local community radio station. What a great way to spend public money. And similarly, the Swan Community Project in Tunbridge was also awarded £300,000 in December to support the purchase of the Swan pub, as well as start-up and renovation costs. And that pub has now been purchased and will serve as a community hub that reduces isolation, improves social cohesion and well-being in a rural community. And it will also provide opportunities for those from the local community to gain work experience. Again, what a great example of what, in the grand scheme of things, quite a small amount of public money can do in terms of huge social benefit. And I know from colleagues that there's considerable interest, and I get written questions on this and correspondence certainly each week about what might come next. And also colleagues will know that we do have a multi-year spending review inbound, so there is a slight limit to what I can say, but I will say that there will be further announcements relating to communities this year, including on the community ownership of assets. But there are things for people to use at the moment, and in the meantime I would encourage any community groups seeking funding to preserve their assets to continue to use the guidance and tools available through the Community Ownership Fund Development Support Provider on the My Community site. These are tools that are rooted in the experiences of lots of different community assets, some state-funded, some who've been able to secure funding from elsewhere. There really is a lot to learn from that. I really would encourage them to do so. But on the point specifically on the Garibaldi, I'd be very interested to meet with the Honourable Lady directly, whether in the Garibaldi itself or perhaps for the purposes of business we might meet somewhere else first, but very happy to retire to the Garibaldi to talk through what support we can give as a department in doing so. This also sits, Madam Deputy Speaker, at a point that interacts with another very, very important communities intervention that we've brought forward as a government, and that's the £1.5 billion plan for neighbourhoods. And that will deliver up to £20 million of funding and support over the next decade to 75 communities across the UK. laying the foundations to kickstart local growth and to drive up living standards. And this is our commitment as a government to work in partnership with residents, businesses, grassroots campaigners and their local authorities to deliver the priorities of local people and drive renewal in these areas. You know, we want, I've said this multiple times from this dispatch box, Madam Deputy Speaker, less of us and more of local communities because they're the experts. And there are already in the prospectus lots of pre-approved interventions that areas can take forward that can support their local pubs. This includes support for developing, restoring or refurbishing local cultural and heritage assets and sites, such as pubs, including for new uses by the community. As well, there could be grants for the development, promotion and upkeep of local tourist attractions, particularly, and we heard a couple of examples from the Honourable Lady about historical pubs in her community. That's the sort of thing that the Plan for Neighbours money can be spent on. And there's also more broadly the opportunity to spend funding on wraparound support for local businesses. So that could be to help it upgrade infrastructure, to make energy savings, because the Honourable Lady talks about overheads and that challenge. So lots and lots of things in the Plan for Neighbourhoods that could help. More broadly, for all communities that perhaps might not be in that as well, we have the community right to buy in high street rental auctions, and the Honourable Member talks about the community right to buy. I'm particularly excited about that. Fought very hard for it to be part of the government, the Labour Party manifesto at the last general election, and through the English Devolution Bill, we will introduce that strong new right to buy for valued community assets such as empty shops, pubs, and community spaces. This will empower local people to bring community spaces back into community ownership and to end the blight of those empty premises and happily give way.
I thank the Minister for giving way, and I thank the Honourable Member for Reigate for bringing this debate, and I'd like to join her and the Member for Newcastle and Lyne in listing a couple of great community pubs that we have in Hemel Hempstead, including the best newcomer pub of the year, the Anchor in Bourne End, the 2025 pub of the year, the Three Blackbirds, which is always good for a Labour pub quiz. We do like that. The Windmill in Chipperfield, where I've had the pleasure of doing surgeries without a pint at hand, I promise. The Green Dragon in Flaundon that I mentioned in my maiden speech is a wonderful pub. But I just wanted to focus on the point you made about empty shops, because there's a really great initiative in Hemel Hempstead, a great place called the Hop Tap, which has opened up in what was our market square. So we used to have a sort of market square, and times have moved on, and that space is in some ways empty. But they've moved in at short notice. They've created this wonderful craft beer place. They're now looking to sell beer online and in the store for people to take away. Does the Honourable Member agree with me that's a really innovative way in which we can have pubs for the 21st century that meet the community and help tackle empty shops?
Yeah, I think that's a great use. The high street is going to change. You know, as I said, Madam Deputy Speaker, it will be a defining feature of this Parliament as to the degree to which we can foment such change. But the change won't be a restoration of how things were 20 or 30 years ago. It will be about reimagining that space, and leisure is particularly going to be a good use. I think, you know, whether it's microbreweries, I'm going to do it myself now. The Bullswell in Bulwell, just down the road from my constituency office, I vowed I wouldn't and I couldn't resist, is exactly an example of that. But there will be leisure purposes more generally. I am very, very enthusiastic about boutique bingo and the life that can bring to the high street as well. And I think, as a perfect segue, a real opportunity for right honourable colleagues watching this debate, or people watching online, or people reading it back later, that high street rental auctions provide a really good way of doing exactly that. So new powers for local authorities to require landlords to rent out persistently vacant commercial units. So it could be those exact type of entities that could fulfil that space and get their first toe onto the ladder and to develop their businesses.
I wonder whether you'll be able to...
Adam Jogi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wonder whether you'll be able to give us a flavour of the pubs in Romsey and Southampton North, because we feel sure that would add to the debate this evening.
The Honourable Member, for his point of order, it would of course be remiss of me not to mention the Greyhound in Broughton, which was the Romsey and Southampton North Pub of the Year 2025. Minister.
That's the spirit, Madam Deputy Speaker. And before I finish, colleagues have asked about other support to reduce overheads. And I think it's worth noting that nearly half of pubs have a rateable value of under £15,000, which takes them out of rates entirely. My honourable friend asked for a confirmation of of rates. I'm afraid I can't run ahead of the Chancellor, who will set that for 26-27 at the forthcoming budget in the autumn, but we can say that for this year, that is a 40% relief, and I know one that is very welcome indeed. So, to conclude, Madam Deputy Speaker, I think we've seen both the strength of feeling from colleagues this evening, but also I think we've had a wonderful insight into the variety of the different ways in which pubs touch our communities. But there's a common theme, even within that variety, and that it's huge social value, that people of the community who know their community coming together to tackle the challenges and to really add to the community. We should want as much of that as we can possibly foster, and we as a government are very keen to support that happening. Thank you very much.